What's up, wayward souls? I hope you're doing well. In today's episode, I'm just going to talk about how I accidentally channeled my grandfather. It was definitely an odd experience. I was just trying to communicate with my spirit guides as normal, and there he was. So yeah, I'm just going to tell you about my experience with this. It was pretty crazy, and I didn't see it coming. But yeah, it was definitely weird. So my grandfather, unfortunately, he was an abusive alcoholic man. He mistreated my grandmother a lot and their children, including my mother. He was not a very good person at all. I've only seen him once before, when I was really, really little, like 5 years old, maybe. I met him once. Didn't like him because, of course, empathic children know when someone's not the best to be around. And so when my grandmother passed away, I had a dream that I was in her house and her spirit was so angry and scary looking, and she was very angry and rageful about Bob, about my grandfather, and how horrible he was to her and the family. She was filled with so much rage. And at the time, this is when my grandfather had just passed away. My grandmother died a few years before, and this is when I first really became in contact with my grandmother. It was that dream. I began to tell her, "You're safe. We're all safe now. He's passed away. He's gone. He can't hurt anyone anymore." And I felt her spirit get light, and she hugged me and thanked me, and it's like she flew up in to the sky. Like she left the home, her spirit was released, she let go, and she healed, and her spirit is now a part of the greater consciousness. But ever since then, I've been in regular contact with my grandmother. Now, with my grandfather, this is a jump ahead a few years, where now me and my cousin have been contacting certain passed on loved ones. And so this night, I'm doing my journaling. This is one way that I channel spirit, is I just start writing down the messages that they have for me. And I remember as I'm writing down, what is it, spirit, that you want me to be aware of at this time? I start to hear an old man. I start to hear a voice creeping up in the background. It sounded very quiet at first. And then I started to pay attention to it, and the voice got a bit louder. And then I noticed that this voice was had a very harsh, desperate pain in its voice, like anguish, like despair, like really, really, really depressed old man's voice that I've heard. And so I started to ask who it was, because I didn't know I've never met it before. And then I came to the conclusion, I said, "Is this Bob?" And as soon as I said that, or asked that, I felt this massive energy go right into my body. Like it was above me, behind me, and it sat right into me. And I felt this weight, and my body started shaking a little bit. And all I could hear in his voice, I could hear it so loudly now, is, "I'm so sorry for everything I'd done. I can't believe this was my life. I can't believe I did this to people. I'm such an awful person. Please, if you can't forgive me, at least let me help you in this life. Let me give you some advice." And he did. He said, "If there's anything I can give you to make your life as fun, as happy as possible, do what you love. Go and do things. Be courageous. Don't be afraid to do what you want to do in your life. Allow yourself to be happy. Nurture and take care of yourself." And he basically said a bunch of things like that, and he's so horribly sorry for what he's done, and that he just wanted the best for me and for the rest of the family. He feels a lot of guilt right now towards my grandmother, that was definitely clear when I felt it. And so it was definitely a really weird experience. I said, thank you for the messages. At the time, I wasn't quite ready to be in contact with him because I'm so close with my grandmother and people and my mom and stuff. It just didn't feel right to just accept. But sometimes spirits, when we pass on, we go through a period of time where we reflect a lot of the things we did in our lives. When we are living, we have more of an ego, and ego's not bad. It's our survival mechanism. But when we live in such a chaotic world, and there's things like trauma that goes unrecognized or unhealed and things like that, and toxic behavioral traits that we teach each other through generations and stuff. It's all generations of abuse and things like that. And so when you pass on, you let go of all those worldly things and that earthly identity. And so now you're left at this higher perspective, this higher vibration, where you're processing everything that went down, and you're thinking about how you can do better in the next life. Or at least that's what I believe, and that's kind of what I'm feeling from a lot of these people that have passed on, that I've been in contact with, is there's a period of time where they're just in processing mode. And so that night, I got a message from my cousin, and she said someone's in her house, like a being, a spirit, but she doesn't know who it is. And I told her instantly, I knew. I was like, this is after I spoke with Bob. I asked her, I'm like, ask if that's Bob. And turns out it was, when she was communicating with it. And every time that, for the next month after that, every time she was talking to me over the phone or had to go see me, Bob would show up at her place, because he really wants, I'm getting this, like, he just really wants to help the family right now. Which is really crazy. But funny thing too is the house that my cousin lived in was the house that my grandfather lived in way back in the day, which is pretty coincidental and crazy. But yeah, so that was just my experience channeling my grandfather on such a energetic and physical level. It was definitely a crazy experience that I don't have too often. Usually when I'm channeling people, I hear it through like whispers or images of them being next to me or with me or things like that. But that was definitely a really intense channeling experience. And yeah, it's just really cool. And I thought it'd be cool if anyone wanted to hear my story. Maybe one of you guys have had a mediumship experience that you'd like to share. You can post in the comments if you'd like to. But yeah, this is crazy stuff. And mediumship and connecting to spirit is so real, and it's so accessible for everybody. It's such a beautiful and crazy thing. And yeah, and it's, again, if you ever get fearful, if you ever try this kind of stuff and you get fearful, all you do is, if you're not sure what the energy is, or if it's might be bad energy or good, just set your boundaries. Always set your boundaries and say, no, you must leave this house. Only love and light is allowed. Like, whatever your chant is, just have some firm boundaries when you're speaking to spirit, because there's obviously going to be negative entities out there and things like that, and you don't want to get tied up with that. All right, that's all I have to say, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I'll love you and have a good day. Okay, take care.